Good morning all of you. Welcome to our live program of CIT NCERT. I am Sabila Rashid and today we'll learn about how to decode a story. We'll take up a story by famous writer Oscar Wilde, The Happy Prince. We have Dr. Meenakshi Khar with us, who is Associate Professor of English in Department of Education and Languages, NCERT. Ma'am, welcome to our show.
Good morning.
Ma'am, why is it necessary to read a story? Why do we read stories?
Yes, we all read stories, and I'll make a very broad statement. I'll begin with that human beings are born storytellers. We weave mesmerizing stories and we are keen listeners as well. You know, it is our nature that we understand things in stories, we think in stories. And interestingly, the researchers have also shown that human mind loves stories. Why? Because the stories arouse our emotions and we feel or we develop a connect with the stories, and when this connect is developed, the story is retained better. Secondly, the stories are organized. There is a unity in the story which we all appreciate. What I mean by organization and unity in the story is that the story problematizes a situation and it shows some direction also to the reader, and some kind of closure is also there in the story. So it has some organization, some unity in it. And there is one more reason, and I consider it very important, that the stories are about human behavior. The stories bring out the human generosity, kindness, magnanimity, and the stories have a very cathartic effect. See, if you read a story about war, about violence or conflict, after reading the story, the reader craves for peace and harmony. Right. Similarly, when we read the stories which are focused on the values of peace, harmony, love, affection, friendship, again it has a very soothing effect on the reader. That is why, you know, stories are loved, stories are read, stories are created, and another thing very interesting, that it has some derogatory connotation also. Like we say, he has made up a story. Right. So it is something of a combination of fact and fiction as well. But there is some romance about the story which we all love as human beings. As I said, that we understand things in a story. If you explain something in a story, that is better understood and better retained, instead of putting something in structures or in definitions. Perhaps I think that is why, we have a very rich repertoire of stories. We keep on creating stories, contemporary stories. We have different genres of writing in stories, and as children you must have read stories. We have read stories, and somewhere some connect is developed with stories, which helps us in our life, in developing our perceptions of this world, in understanding human beings, as well as pedagogically also, academically also. The stories are better understood. The themes, the problems in the story are better understood than in prose. They are very close to human art.
Right. Dr. Meenakshi, as you have explained, that stories are something that generates our emotions, and even we can be a good listener, we can be a good writer as well, we can create stories. Basically human beings love stories. But when we talk about the strategies, is there any strategy that we follow while reading stories?
Actually, as we have already said, that stories are very close to human heart. So the first thing that comes to our mind is that how a story should be read. How can we relate with the story? You know, do we lift our head when we read a story. This is a very good, a parameter of understanding how well I have understood the story. If I lift my head while reading the story, it doesn't mean that I am not taking interest in the story, but it is other way round. And what is that? When I lift my head for say for few seconds while reading the story, that means that I am involved in the process of the reading, I am involved in the story, and I am trying to reflect over what I have read. This is the most important part of reading, that we get the space for reflection, for thinking. If while reading we are not giving ourselves that space for reflection and thinking, then the process of meaning making becomes very difficult. So the first thing is that we should be involved in reading. Now if we talk in terms of classroom, transactions, that how a story should be read in the classroom. Now the first thing I would suggest is that we should begin with the title. Why I say so? That when we read the title, then we start predicting, we start guessing that what this story could be about. This is very important strategy which all teachers, which all learners, all readers should follow. Because the moment you read the title, your brain, your mind starts working. And you start thinking that this could be about this could be about that. So in a way, this is a process where you are getting into the fabric of the story.
It's like an enticing window that
entices
a reader to read this story.
Yes. So the first thing is always read the illustration that is given in the beginning of the story. Read the title of the story so that you can make guesses. The story is the meaning making process that is involved in reading the story is all about predictions. I will read the story based on my understanding of the context and the text. You will read it according to your own experiences. So that is very important in the story, because as a story, it is not only about the character, about the difficult words, about the plot, theme and the message. These are the important components of the story. I would say the very technical aspect, the mechanical aspect of the story. But what is important in the story is the meaning. And as we read the story, we read the script, we read the words, and the story is somewhere beyond the print and beyond the words. It is beyond our eyes. When I read, there is a script in front of me, there is a print in front of me, but the meaning lies beyond that print and script. So the whole effort of the reader should be that he should go beyond what is written in front of him, because meaning is somewhere else, and meaning making is a very complex process. As you read, you bring into your conscious level all your experiences. If this is not happening, then we would say that the story is not being well read. And the end of the story, after reading the story, you may not come out of your own reading of the story. By that I mean the meaning that you have constructed out of your own reading of the story. So what is important is not the print in front of me, not only the print in front of me, but what is behind that print. And the meaning is somewhere embedded in the story. So how to reach that meaning? That becomes important for us. For this, what becomes important is the context of the story. Somewhere there is an interaction between the text and the reader. So this interaction could be in the form of a dialogue. that is going on in the mind of the reader. That is why we say that reading should always be silent reading. When we read aloud, the focus is on the words, how to pronounce those words, find out the meanings of the difficult words. So that is another aspect of reading the story. When we are reading the stories, to understand the linguistic features of the story, like what is the style, what is the meaning of this word in this context, what is the vocabulary. But here we are talking about decoding a story in terms of relating with the story to construct individual meaning out of the story.
Right. Dr. Meenakshi, here one question arises, as you have mentioned that there can be a particular text, a story, and different individual can read it differently. Like what I perceive from that story might not be same as you perceive the story. So how should it be taught in the classroom when there are 60 students sitting in the same classroom and everybody has different experiences? How should a teacher ask the student to read a story?
Fine. The first thing that we should promote in the classroom is that we should give opportunity of reading silently, space for reflection, and the opportunity and recognition of each and every meaning constructed out of the story. You have very well said, the meaning I will construct of a story may be different from yours, different from others. There are 60 students in the classroom. There could be 60 interpretations of that story. This should be encouraged in the classroom if we want to promote the skill of reading. Why I say so? Because if you read the story, you will find that the story is about the observer. It is not about the world. The world is something which we share. Okay? The story is not about our confrontations with reality. It is our encounter with everyday reality, but differently. It has some sacred connotation about it. You see, we perceive something, we understand something, we put it into the story. So it is the observer's interpretation of something which we read in the story. It is not about the world. The writer never says that there is, it is not about the facts which he is presenting. He is weaving a story, and the ultimate aim of the writer is to reach the truth, to reach something sacred. No doubt the stories are about the reality, about the social realism. But again, it is somewhere while reading the story or while writing the story, it is our encounter with the truth in a story. If that encounter with the truth is not there in the story, we don't consider it a good story. Because stories are composed of everyday experiences, but those everyday experiences are woven in such a way that you feel something sacred about it. It may be something very small, but it has something sacred about it. I am just reminded of one article that I have read recently. There was a traveler, and he traveled whole of the India, going this place to that place, experiencing different things, the cuisine and everything, taking photographs. But there was some kind of dissatisfaction. He was not satisfied with all his experiences, though he has faced many experiences. Ultimately, he reaches a place in Rajasthan, and there he felt very hungry and he wanted to take some rest. Knocked the door, and an old lady came out, very old lady came out. He took him inside the house, and he observed that she was, she was just not very comfortable with the staircase or with whatever she was offering to him. But gradually he realized that she was blind, but she offered to cook the meal for the traveler, and he says that he could feel the warmth and affection with which he cooked the meal. So at that point, the traveler realized that this is what I was looking for.
They got the eternal bliss of
Yes,
this travel.
the truth that I have found. Something sacred about that woman, that she told the traveler later on that she is blind, she was blind, and her son has just told her that since she is good at cooking, so she can sometimes entertain the travelers. So, when you read the story, it is possible that you may touch something which is not on the surface. And mostly what I have observed is that our focus is on the plot of the story, the characters of the story, or we indulge in finding the meanings of the difficult world while we read the story. So my whole point is that when we read the story, the strategy which we should follow is that we should infer the meaning from the words. We should not run to the dictionary after every 5 minutes to find out the meaning. It breaks your flow of thinking and understanding. So all the stories are about the observers. That is why, Sabila, what you have said is very true. That as an observer of this world, you will create a different story from my story, because I have my own observations of this world. Somewhere students should understand this, and teachers should encourage this kind of reading in the school. And another important thing in reading is that we are also somewhere in the story.
Right, right.
As we read, we reinvent ourselves, and we find that we are somewhere present in the story. I'm just reminded of one famous fable, the ant and the grasshopper. Now, in that story, either I am an ant or a grasshopper. You are an ant or a grasshopper. But how should we, or how could we make this decision? This was possible because we were involved in the meaning of the story, that what the writer is saying and what have I understood from what the writer has said. So that the thread that runs beneath those words is to be caught. So that is why we feel that yes, somewhere we are present in the story. So that gives you a feeling of satisfaction that you are part of the story. So if you feel that you are somewhere being present in the story, gives you more, boosts you to go more closer to the meaning of the story. So this is very important. The strategies which we use for decoding a story is only one important strategy, that one should develop the habit of reading silently and involving ourselves in the story. Then only one can create the meaning that is there in the story. That is very important.
Right. Ma'am, taking this discussion further, we were talking about decoding a story, and we took in particular The Happy Prince. It is written by a famous writer and author, Oscar Wilde. I'll just read one paragraph, and ma'am, you can explain it to our viewers. It is a story, The Happy Prince. The statue of the Happy Prince stood high above the city. It was covered with gold. Its eyes were bright blue jewels, and a red jewel hung from its waist. Everyone thought that it was very beautiful. Why aren't you like the Happy Prince? Mothers said to their little boys when they cried. Sad men looked at the statue and said, I am glad that someone in the world is happy. One night a little bird flew alone over the city. The other birds were all in Egypt now. Where can I stay tonight? He thought. Then he saw the statue. I will stay there, he thought. It is high up, so there is plenty of fresh air. He landed between the feet of the happy prince. I have a golden bedroom, he thought. But as he put his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. He looked up. This is very strange, he thought. There is not a cloud in the sky, but it is raining. Then another drop fell. I cannot stay on a statue that does not keep me dry, he thought. I must find another place. And he decided to fly away. But as he opened his wings, a third drop fell. He looked up and saw. Ah, what did he see? The eyes of the happy prince were full of tears. Tears ran down his golden face. The face was very beautiful in the moonlight, and the bird felt sorry for him. So this is the story. So ma'am, can you please explain this story to our viewers?
Okay, I'll try to do that. As I said earlier, that we should begin with the title of the story. Now the title of the story is The Happy Prince. The moment you read the title of the story, you start guessing that it could be about a prince who is not cruel, who is not a despot, who must be very generous. So you start making guesses about the story. As you start reading, after reading first few lines, you gather some information that this seems to be a fairy tale.
Right.
Because there is, this is a story about a bird and the prince. And broadly, if we look at the story, we find there are 5 major frames in the story. I am talking first about the surface level reading of the story, the one time reading when we read and we understand, okay, this is about it.
Right.
Now if we see the structure of the story, we will find there are major 5 frames in the story. The first frame is about the bonding, the friendship that started between the bird and the happy prince. After that, the 3 major frames are about the generosity, the kindness the prince shows to the people who are suffering. He is a prince gilded with gold and precious stones, and he is a statue. He is no longer alive. As we read, we come to know that he is a statue. He has been placed on a pedestal and he could see the city now. Earlier he couldn't see the city because he was living in a palace, and palace was a kind of an island, totally cut off from the people. Now in this position he could see that how people are suffering. There is one instance when he finds that there is a seamstress and she has to finish making a gown for someone in the palace, because there is going to be a dance, a festival in the palace, some great occasion in the palace, so she has to stitch that gown. Her son is very ill, she cannot take care of her, she has no money to buy medicine for her. So the prince tells the bird that go and give my some of the precious things which are gilded on me to that woman. Second is another instance where there is a writer who is struggling. I mean, he has no patron, he has no money, but he has to prove himself as a writer. He has to adopt writing as a profession, but he has no help, no guidance, no money. So he is also very depressed, in distress. So prince comes to know about it. Again he tells the bird to go and give these sapphires or precious stones to that writer. Again the third frame says that there is a little girl and she has to sell some matchboxes, but accidentally those matchboxes are spoiled, she has no money, and when she will go back home, her father might hit her. because she hasn't earned any money and she has lost those matchboxes as well. Now this is the third major frame of the story. The prince comes to know about it, and again he tells the bird that go and give this sapphire, this stone to that girl. That is how these four major frames are built. The last frame of the story is also very meaningful, very touching. You know, when everything is taken off, all the wealth, the riches has been taken away from the statue of that prince, now he looks very ugly. And the important people of the city, like the mayor and the councillors, they come and say, what is this rubbish? The prince is looking like a beggar. We should remove this statue. And why? The bird is dead here. So we should issue an order that birds are not allowed to die here. So there is sarcasm in this story. Now these 4-5 frames constitute the basic of the story. But we should not restrict ourselves to this basic of the story, because as a reader we need to understand that why these 3 frames are there, what is the author trying to tell us. Somewhere the author is trying to tell us that how people were suffering in poverty in those times, how as a prince he was not aware of suffering of the people outside the palace, and how people look at things. The important people, the mayor and the councillor, they come and they just want that the facade should be happy, facade should be rich, and if it is not happy and rich, then it should be removed. If you have read the first few lines of the story, where people aspire to be like the happy prince. If you read in depth this story, you will find that people are looking at happy prince, the statue of the happy prince, as a symbol of happiness, because it is covered with gold and riches. Right. So again it is a peep into the psyche and conditions of the people, that they are without money, they are longing for money, and when they see a show of richness, show of gold, they feel happy. But along with these frames, there are minor frames which contribute to the richness of the story. To tell you briefly, it is about the monologues of the bird, how they contribute in the richness of the story, and how the author, through the statue of that prince, conveyed to us the value of sacrifice, bonding, friendship, and value of being human. Right. That is the ultimate aim of this story. So this is all about the major and the minor frames of the story. But can I show something?
Yes, sure.
Do we have the time?
So
now, if we look at this printed paper, I have taken some of the important parts of the story. See, extend the following into a story, paragraph, or a poem. This can be done with this story if we pick up this line of the story. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell, and he looked up and saw. Ah, what did he see? Children can extend it into a story or a poem. Now the second one, the eyes of the happy prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. Now the question is, why was the swallow filled with pity, not happy when he saw the beautiful face of the prince? When you look at something beautiful, you are not filled with pity, you are filled with happiness. So you have to find out the answer after reading the story once or twice, that why she was filled with pity. And if you can take one more, that there is no mystery so great as misery. See, it's a very meaningful statement. Why do people suffer? It's a mystery.
Right.
Some people have money, others don't have, but they are not willing to share their money with others.
Right.
There is no empathy with them. There is no connectedness with them, and there is lack of human values. So he says, the author says, that it's a big mystery, that why do people suffer? When we have resources, when we have people who have hoarded money, but they are not willing to share it with others.
Right.
So it's really a mystery. The living always think gold can make them happy. So it's a comment on the society at that time. It is a comment upon materialism at that time. You know, in Oscar Wilde's time, when he wrote this story, it was the Victorian age, and there was industrialization, and with industrialization we all know materialism came. So this is the reason that we have become so materialistic, that whatever is gold,
Right.
whatever has value in terms of money and riches, that makes us happy.
Right.
So,
Thank you so much, Dr. Meenakshi. I wish we could continue this discussion further, but our time is over and this episode is over. Thank you so much for letting our viewers know how to decode a story, how to read a story, and also taking into particular consideration The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. This is all for today. If you have any suggestion or any query, you can call us on our toll-free number. We are flashing our toll-free number, and also you can email us at cit@kishormanch@gmail.com. This is all for today. We'll see you tomorrow with another topic, with another expert. Thank you so much for being with us.
thank you.